Ambassador Jiha Park pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation window. Outside, huge alien ships moved through space like dark mountains floating in the void. Their strange shapes made her stomach twist with worry. Each ship belonged to a different species, and all of them had come here for one reason: to judge humanity. 3 days ago, a creature with 4 yellow eyes had knocked on her door. The Vorthak messenger was tall and thin, with skin like old leather. It had looked at her like she was something dirty on its shoe. Without saying a word, it handed her a crystal tablet that glowed with alien writing. "What does it say?" asked Lieutenant Minho Kim, her young assistant. His dark hair was messy from running his hands through it too much lately. Jihi touched the crystal and the words appeared in her mind, cold and commanding. "The Council of 12 hereby commands the human representative to appear before the Grand Assembly. You must answer for the infractions committed by the human species against galactic order." Minho's face turned red. "Infractions? We followed every single rule they gave us, every treaty, every law, every stupid ceremony they wanted." Jihi walked to her desk and turned on the star charts. Tiny lights showed where humans lived in the galaxy. 3 new dots blinked in the Kepler sector: New Seoul, New Busan, and New Incheon. Beautiful worlds with clean air and fresh water, perfect for human families. "Look at this, Minho." She pointed to the trade lines that now went through human space. "Ships don't have to pay the Council's taxes anymore when they use our routes. We're cheaper and faster." "So they're angry because we're good at business?" "They're angry because we're different." Jihi's voice was quiet but firm. "For 3,000 years they've told every species how to live, where to go, what to think. Then humans show up and prove there's another way." The comm system buzzed with Captain Dongyun Lee's voice. "Ambassador, your transport is ready. The Council expects you in 6 hours. Are you sure you want to go alone?" "I have to. If I bring guards, they'll say humans are violent. If I bring too many people, they'll say we're trying to intimidate them." Jihi packed her files carefully. Each folder held proof of human kindness: medical supplies given to sick aliens, human soldiers who died protecting other species, new technologies shared freely with anyone who asked. She had records of 17 wars that humans had stopped, 43 species that humans had saved from disasters, but she knew the Council didn't care about any of that. Minho helped her carry the files to the transport ship. The pilot was a nervous young woman named Soyeon who kept checking her instruments twice. "Don't worry," Jihye told her. "Just get me there safely." As the ship flew through space, Jihye watched the Council station grow bigger and bigger. It was like a metal city floating in the darkness with 12 different sections built by 12 different species. The Thalorian section looked like a giant crystal. The Nexari part was all smooth curves. The Dominion section was dark and angular, like a weapon pointing at the stars. "It's beautiful," Soyeon whispered from the pilot's seat. "It's a cage," Jihye said. "A beautiful cage that's held the galaxy prisoner for 3,000 years." Through her window, she could see other ships arriving. Representatives from hundreds of species were coming to watch the trial. She knew what they expected to see: proud humans brought low, forced to beg forgiveness for daring to be successful. Her tablet buzzed with messages from Earth. President Park Seung-jin wished her luck. Admiral Taejun Choi promised that the human fleet was ready if things went badly. Dr. Yoonji Seo sent medical data about all the alien diseases that human doctors had cured. But the message that meant the most came from her daughter back on Earth. "Mom, make them listen. Make them understand who we really are." The transport ship docked with a soft thud. Through the airlock, Ji could hear alien voices: clicks, whistles, harmonic humming. They were all talking about the humans, she realized. Some voices sounded curious, others sounded angry. Most sounded afraid. She stood up and straightened her formal diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric felt heavy on her shoulders, like armor. On her collar was a small pin showing Earth, a tiny blue dot that reminded her of home. "Ambassador," Soyeon called out. "Good luck in there." Jihi smiled. "Luck has nothing to do with it. Today the galaxy gets to meet humanity. Really meet us. not just the stories they've been told. She walked through the airlock into the massive council station. Alien guards with too many arms and not enough eyes watched her pass. The corridors were filled with creatures she had only seen in textbooks, some beautiful, some terrifying, all ancient and proud. At the end of the longest corridor was a door that reached from floor to ceiling. Behind that door waited the Council of 12, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Jihi took a deep breath and stepped forward. Time to show them what humans were really made of. The doors opened with a sound like thunder. Jihi walked into the biggest room she had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds could have formed up there. Around her, 12 huge platforms rose into the air like metal mountains. On each platform sat a different alien species looking down at her like gods judging a mortal. She stood on a small circle in the center of the floor. The platform was barely big enough for her feet, and she could feel hundreds of alien eyes staring at her. The message was clear. You are small, you are nothing, you are alone. But Jihi had been in tough rooms before. She kept her back straight, and her face calm. Counselor Vex spoke first. He looked like a giant lizard wearing fancy clothes. His green scales rippled as he moved, and his yellow eyes burned with anger. Humans have broken the concordat of measured growth. 3 new colonies in 1 year. This is not how civilized species behave. His voice echoed through the chamber like rocks falling down a mountain. Around the room, other aliens nodded their heads or made clicking sounds that meant they agreed. Jihi noticed the cameras, dozens of them all pointed at her. This whole thing was being broadcast across the galaxy. Every species would see her standing here surrounded by her enemies. Your military is a joke, said Counselor Brix. She looked like a walking diamond, all sharp edges and bright light. We have watched your ships in battle. You bunch them together like scared children hiding from monsters. Real warriors maintain proper formation. More clicking and whistling from the gallery. Jihi could see Admiral Taejin Choi in the human section, his hands clenched into fists. She caught his eye and shook her head slightly. Not yet. The Nexari representative was next. It looked like lightning trapped in a metal bottle, crackling and humming with energy. Human culture is primitive noise. Your music hurts our audio receptors. Your books are full of messy emotions. How can such creatures think they belong among civilized beings? Each insult hit like a slap, but Jihi didn't move. She had expected this. The council wasn't interested in facts or fairness. This was a show designed to humiliate humanity in front of the watching galaxy. Counselor Zeph looked like a walking tree made of metal. His voice sounded like wind through leaves, but his words were sharp as knives. Human cities are chaos, no planning, no beauty, no order, just ugly buildings scattered everywhere like garbage thrown by a child. The alien laughter got louder. It was a horrible sound, clicks and squeaks in musical tones that somehow managed to sound mean and nasty. Jihi realized that this was what hate sounded like in a dozen different languages. For 2 hours, it continued. Each of the 12 council members took their turn to insult humanity. They called humans stupid, violent, ugly, primitive, and dangerous. They said human food was disgusting, human customs were barbaric, and human technology was crude and worthless. Dr. Yoonji Seo, sitting with the human delegation, wiped tears from her eyes. These aliens were talking about her life's work, the medical advances that had saved millions of lives, the technologies that had made space travel safer for everyone. But still, Jihi stood silent and still. She was like a rock in a storm, letting the insults wash over her without breaking. Finally, First Counselor Thexna rose from the central platform. He was the oldest and most powerful of all the council members. His species, the Dominion, had ruled the galaxy before humans had even learned to make fire. He looked like a shadow given form, dark and terrible and ancient. The evidence is clear. His voice boomed through the chamber. Humanity is a threat to galactic order. They grow too fast, fight too differently, and think too independently. They must be stopped before they corrupt other species with their chaos. The alien laughter reached a crescendo. Some species stamped their feet or tentacles. Others flashed lights or released chemical signals that smelled like celebration. They thought they had won. Thexana raised one shadowy hand and the noise stopped instantly. But we are merciful. We will give the human representative one chance to speak before we pass judgment. One chance to beg for forgiveness and promise to obey. He looked down at Ji with what might have been amusement. Speak quickly, human. Our patience grows thin, and mercy has limits. The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye, tentacle, sensor, and energy field focused on the small human woman standing alone in the center of that vast room. The camera zoomed in on her face, broadcasting her image to billions of beings across the galaxy. They expected her to break. They expected tears, pleading, desperate promises to be good. They expected humanity to bow down and accept their place as servants in the galactic order. Instead, Jihi smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it changed everything. Suddenly, she didn't look small or defeated. She looked like someone who knew a secret that nobody else had figured out yet. "Thank you, counselors," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I do have something to say." First Counselor Thexana waved. His dark hand and the air above Jihi's head came alive with light. A massive hologram appeared, so big it filled half the chamber. The images were beautiful and terrible at the same time, pictures of human cities floating in the air like glowing dreams. "Look at this mess." Thexana's voice boomed from speakers hidden in the walls. His words echoed off the ceiling and came back doubled, making him sound like a god pronouncing judgment. "This is what humans call civilization." The hologram showed new soul on Kepler Prime. The city sprawled across green hills like a living thing, with buildings of different shapes and colors mixed together. Gardens grew on rooftops. Children played in parks between the towers. Markets buzzed with activity as humans and aliens traded goods and stories. "Chaos," sneered Thexana. "No order, no planning, no beauty. Just random structures thrown together by creatures who don't understand harmony." The image changed to New Busan on Tau Ceti. The industrial city hummed with activity. Factories worked alongside research centers. Art studios shared space with engineering labs. Workers from a dozen different species labored side by side, their different skills combining to create things none of them could make alone. "Ugly efficiency," spat Counselor Vex, his reptilian tongue flicking out to taste his own disgust. "Where is the elegance? Where is the separation between sacred and mundane? They mix everything together like soup." But some aliens in the gallery leaned forward, studying the images more carefully. They saw something the council didn't want them to see: happiness. The humans in these cities were smiling. They were building things, creating things, living lives full of purpose and joy. The hologram shifted again, showing new Incheon on Proxima B. Agricultural domes stretched to the horizon, feeding not just humans, but dozens of refugee species that had nowhere else to go. The farms were beautiful in their own way. Not the perfect geometric patterns that council worlds preferred, but organic curves that followed the natural flow of the land. "And here," Thexana continued, "we see their agricultural chaos. No straight lines, no mathematical precision. They grow food like wild animals, following instinct instead of science." But Dr. Yoonji Seo, watching from the human delegation, knew the truth. Those chaotic farms produce twice as much food as traditional council agriculture, using half the resources and creating zero waste. 3 billion beings across the galaxy ate better because of human agricultural techniques. The hologram changed, one more time, showing space battles from recent conflicts. Human ships moved in loose, flexible formations that looked random to untrained eyes. They clustered together, broke apart, regrouped in different patterns like schools of fish swimming through dangerous waters. "Behold their military incompetence," Thexana announced with obvious pleasure. "The spiral formation has been perfected, over 3,000 years. It is mathematical beauty made manifest in space, but humans fight like barbarians, clustering their ships together in fear. Counselor Brix's crystalline form pulsed with bright light as she spoke. Any first-year military student could defeat such primitive tactics. They have no understanding of proper warfare. Admiral Taejin Choi bit his tongue to keep from laughing. Those primitive tactics had won every battle they'd been used in. Human formations looked chaotic because they were adaptive, able to change and flow like water around obstacles. The beautiful spiral formation that the Council loved so much was rigid and predictable. Easy to counter once you understood it. The evidence is overwhelming, Counselor Vex declared, rising from his platform. Humanity has grown beyond its ability to govern itself responsibly. The time for intervention has come. Thexna gestured and new words appeared in the hologram, hanging in glowing letters above Jihee's head like a sword ready to fall. The Council proposes the following restrictions to contain the human threat. The first line made the human delegation gasp. Immediate cessation of all colonial expansion. Second, Thexna continued with satisfaction, submission of all human military assets to Council oversight and inspection. The third demand was even worse. Payment of 50 billion standard credits in reparations for disrupting established trade patterns. Jihee felt her heart sink. 50 billion credits was more money than humanity had ever seen. It would bankrupt Earth and all the colonies. Families would starve. Children would go without medicine. Entire worlds would fall into poverty. But Counselor Brix wasn't finished. Her crystalline form blazed with triumph as she added the final insult. Furthermore, humanity will accept permanent Council observers on all major worlds to ensure compliance with galactic standards of civilization. The gallery exploded with alien celebration. Clicks, whistles, musical tones, and harmonic vibrations filled the chamber like a storm of sound. Some species stamped their feet or tentacles. Others flashed, colored lights or released chemical signals that smelled like victory. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would collapse under the weight of impossible demands. Thexna raised his hand for silence, and the noise died instantly. The human representative will now offer humanity's final plea before judgment is rendered. The Council graciously permits this opportunity for contrition and surrender. Every eye, sensor, and recording device in the chamber focused on Jihee as she stepped toward the speaking platform. This was the moment they had all come to see. The proud human ambassador brought low, begging for mercy from her superiors. The silence was complete. Even the air recycling system seemed to hold their breath, waiting for humanity's surrender. Jihee walked to the speaking platform with slow, careful steps. Every alien eye in the chamber watched her move. The silence was so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. She stopped at the microphone and bowed deeply to the Council, showing respect, even though they had shown her none. "Honored counselors," she said, her voice clear and calm, "I thank you for this opportunity to address the charges against humanity." Behind her, she could feel the human delegation holding their breath. Admiral Taejin Choi's knuckles were white as he gripped his chair. Dr. Yoonji Seo had tears in her eyes. They all thought she was about to surrender, to beg for mercy that would never come. But Jihee had other plans. "You have presented compelling evidence of human differences," she continued, touching a control on the platform. Her own hologram system came to life, replacing the Council's images with something new. But perhaps the Council would benefit from a more complete picture. The first image that appeared made several aliens in the gallery sit up straighter. It showed the Xerian system, where two species had been fighting a bloody war for 30 years. The Kantari were tall and thin with blue skin. The Veloth were short and round with scales like fish. They hated each other with a passion that burned. Across 3 star systems, the Kantari-Veloth conflict, Jihee said simply. 30 years of war, millions dead. Both species on the edge of extinction. The image shifted to show human diplomats sitting between the 2 alien leaders. Resolved through human mediation last year, both species now trade peacefully through human-established channels. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. This wasn't what they expected to hear. This wasn't surrender. "The Zephyrian plague of 2387, Jihee continued. The hologram showed hospitals full of dying aliens, their bodies covered, In red spots that meant certain death, 17 million Zephyrians were going to die. Their own doctors had given up hope. The image changed to show human medical teams working day and night in quarantine suits. Human researchers developed a cure in 6 months. We distributed it freely to every Zephyrian world, asking for nothing in return. Counselor Vex shifted on his platform, his reptilian features showing discomfort for the first time. Several Zephyrians in the gallery were making soft humming sounds, their way of showing gratitude. But Jihi wasn't done. Image after image appeared. In the hologram, human rescue ships pulling survivors from exploding stations, human engineers sharing new technologies that made space travel safer, human teachers working with alien children on dozens of worlds. In 50 years of galactic presence, Jie said, her voice growing stronger with each word, humanity has resolved 17 major conflicts, prevented 4 genocides, and provided disaster relief to 43 different species. The chamber was no longer silent. Aliens were whispering to each other, pointing at the images, remembering things they had tried to forget. Some of them had been saved by humans. Some of them owed their lives to human doctors, human soldiers, human diplomats, who cared more about helping than about profit. Counselor Vex tried to regain control. These charitable acts do not excuse violations of established order, he said, but his voice sounded weak. No, Jihi agreed, and for a moment the council members relaxed. Then she smiled that dangerous smile again. But they do raise questions about the effectiveness of that order. Her next holographic display made several counselors recoil in horror. It showed the outer rim, the wild edge of the galaxy, where council law was supposed to protect the weak. Instead, it showed slave markets, primitive species being bought and sold like animals, children torn from their families, entire worlds strip-mined by council corporations. The outer rim slave markets, Jiahai said, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. Operating for 2 centuries under council jurisdiction, 12 primitive species systematically exploited while council oversight looks the other way. The images got worse. Mass graves on conquered worlds, refugee camps that the council pretended didn't exist. 3 different genocides that had happened, while the council debated proper procedure instead of taking action. 3 genocides, Jihi repeated. Millions of beings died while the council followed protocol. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Several alien delegates were making distress sounds. Others were covering their eyes or sensors, unable to look at the evidence of council failure. But Jihye's final display was the one that changed everything. A new star chart appeared, showing the current territorial boundaries of the galaxy. But this chart was different from the official council maps. This one showed the truth. 6 council species have secretly negotiated defense pacts with humanity over the past decade, Jihye announced. The chart highlighted the Thalorian worlds, the Nexari systems, even parts of the BRICS collective. The hegemony war that you refuse to acknowledge publicly. Your own member species have requested human military assistance against threats you pretend don't exist. First Counselor Thexna seemed to shrink on his platform. His dark form flickered like a shadow losing its source of light. You mocked our chaos, Jihi said, her voice now ringing with quiet authority that filled every corner of the vast chamber. But chaos adapts. You mocked our emotions, but emotions drive compassion. You mocked our primitive tactics, but those tactics have saved more lives in 50 years than your elegant formations have in 3 centuries. She looked up at each of the 12 council platforms in turn, meeting their alien eyes without fear. We choose to see our differences as strengths. The silence in the chamber was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every alien being leaned forward, waiting for Jihye's words of surrender. Instead, she stood straighter and spoke with a voice that carried to every corner of the vast room. Therefore, humanity hereby withdraws from council jurisdiction, effective immediately. The words hit like a bomb going off. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Counselor Vex jumped up from his platform, so fast he nearly fell over. His reptilian face was twisted with rage, his yellow eyes blazing like fire. You cannot simply leave. The Council governs all civilized space. You have no right. But Jihi was calm as a lake on a windless day. The Council governs only those who consent to be governed, she said. Her hologram changed again, showing a new document covered with alien signatures. 27 species have already signed the Free World's Charter. They choose cooperation over domination, merit over tradition. The chamber doors opened with a loud bang. Captain Donghyun Lee marched in with 6 human Marines, all carrying sealed diplomatic bags. His voice rang out clear and official. The withdrawal documents have been filed with the Galactic Registry. All human territories and allied systems are now under Free World's protection. The star map above their heads changed. Huge sections of space that had been marked with Council symbols now showed something new. A simple circle that meant equality. The Free World's territory was massive, covering nearly a third of known space. Impossible, whispered Councillor Brix. Her crystalline form was flickering like a broken light bulb. The established order has maintained peace for thousands of years. Jihi turned to look at her directly. Has it? Or has it maintained your control? She pointed to the gallery where something amazing was happening. Hundreds of alien delegates were standing up, getting ready to leave. Ask the Kantari if they felt peaceful during their 30-year war. Ask the plague victims if the established order served them well. Dr. Yoonji Seo stepped forward from the human group. Her voice was clear and strong as she made an announcement that would change the galaxy forever. The first Free World's Assembly will meet in 6 months on New Sol. All species are welcome to join us, as equals, not subjects. First Counselor Thexana tried to stand, but his shadowy form seemed to be falling apart. His voice cracked like old wood breaking. The Council has maintained order since before your species even learned to fly. You cannot destroy 3,000 years of civilization. We're not destroying anything, Jihi said gently. We're just offering something better. She turned away from the Council platforms to face the gallery directly. We don't ask anyone to follow us. We simply offer an alternative to those who want one. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. She walked away. Just turned around and headed for the exit like the most powerful beings in the galaxy were not worth her time. Behind her, the sound started small. Just a few footsteps. Then more. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Alien delegates were leaving their seats and following the human ambassador. Some were species that had been council members for centuries. Others were primitive races that had never been allowed to speak in the council chambers. A young Kantari delegate with blue skin hurried to catch up with Jihye. Ambassador, my people remember what you did for us. We want to join the Free Worlds. An elderly Zephyrian whose life had been saved by human medicine walked beside them. The council watched us die. Humans saved us. We know who our real friends are. By the time Jihi reached the chamber doors, half the gallery was following her. The ancient council chamber, which had never been empty in 3,000 years, was suddenly echoing with the sound of desertion. The 12 council members sat on their high platforms watching their empire crumble. Some tried to call out orders, but nobody was listening anymore. The age of the council was ending, and they could only watch it happen. 6 months later, Jihi stood in a very different kind of chamber. The Free World's Assembly met on New Sol, in a building designed by humans and aliens working together. Instead of high platforms that made some beings look down on others, everyone sat at the same level. The chamber buzzed with dozens of different languages as species talked to each other as equals for the first time in galactic history. Admiral Taejin Choi walked up to her with a smile on his face. 3 more systems asked to join today, and guess what? The Thalorian Council just applied for associate membership. Jihi looked out at the assembly floor. A young Nexari delegate who glowed with soft light was having an excited conversation with an old Kantari about new farming techniques. A Zephyrian child was playing with human children in the visitor area. Former enemies were becoming friends. They mocked us for being different, Jihi said softly. Maybe that difference was exactly what the galaxy needed. The Free Worlds Alliance kept growing every day. It was built on a simple human idea that shocked the galaxy, that all thinking beings deserved to have a say in how they were governed. The Council's age of control was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it all started with one human who refused to bow down when the powerful demanded submission.